I think an important way that we can learn about academic honesty is by looking at examples of academic dishonesty and think about how could they become examples of academic honesty. So these examples were in the previous video. So if you want to take a moment and pause and review what they are, you can do that. I am going to go on to the next slide, which shows the examples 2 through 6 and how they can be altered to be examples of academic honesty. So, number 1, because that was a good example of academic honesty, I didn't have to change anything there. Number 2 was about copying a sentence from the internet and putting it in your papers if you wrote it. Well, instead, you could copy a sentence from the internet and correctly cite where the sentence came from. That's one option. You put it in quote marks and then include the correct citations and then include a citation or a list of reference and include the citation there. Number 3 was working with your classmates on a homework assignment where everyone writes the same answers. And instead of that, what you can do is have a situation where you are working with your classmates on a homework assignment where everyone shares ideas but writes their own answers. Again, it's important to accurately convey what you know. So using your own words does that. And so that's an important part of academic honesty and developing your critical thinking. Number 4, buying a paper from a website that writes the paper for you. There wasn't much I could think of that would be a good version of this. So I crossed the whole thing out and the closest version I could think of was getting help from online tutoring websites. I don't know about many of them, but if you find those, maybe they can be a good resource for you. But also remember that you do have free tutoring resources at San Diego State University. Number 5 was submitting a paper you submitted last semester for an assignment this semester. And I'm going to say instead, what you can do is you can get ideas from a paper you submitted last semester and then rewrite those ideas for your assignment this semester. So I think it's a great idea to build on what you've done before, especially if they're major classes or related classes, things like that. You want to build your knowledge based on what you've already learned, but you don't want to copy that. You want to rewrite and show exactly what you understand. Number 6, sending a rough draft to your friend and your friend sends your paper back to you with all the grammar errors corrected. Instead, what you can do is send a rough draft to your friend and your friend sends your paper back to you with suggestions to improve your paper. There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting help from someone else to read your paper. In fact, our goal is so often that we want to make sure that your reader, that your audience understands your ideas. And if you can get that perspective from a friend, from a family member, from a classmate, that's wonderful. Just make sure that if you're making improvements or if you're making changes or something like that, the ideas come from you. So your friend can help you, your family member, whomever can help you, but they can't do the work for you because that's not showing what you're capable of. That's showing what your family member is capable of. And we want to remember, they're not the ones getting the grade. We want to know what you're capable of. So these are some examples of where we might have things that you might do that are academically dishonest, but you can change your behavior just a little bit so that you're practicing academic honesty. Another part of this conversation is the idea of what might happen if you are practicing academic dishonesty. So some things that can happen are that you could lose points or maybe even the assignment gets a 0 and that you're not able to make it up, or sometimes that your workload is affected because you might have to completely redo the assignment if you want to get any points. And remember, your instructor will decide these things on a case-by-case basis, depending on the level of the severity of the situation and many other factors that they might take into consideration. Another thing that might happen is that your instructor might be obligated to report to the Center for Student Rights and Responsibilities. And again, it's a case-by-case basis. If, for example, I think if you were to copy a sentence from the internet for your homework, that's not as big of a deal. But if you have a major assignment and that's worth a big part of your grade, and it turns out that you bought the paper from somewhere and your instructor sees that or figures that out, then that would be a case where probably it'd be a little more severe. Again, if you have any questions about this, you can ask your instructor and they'll be able to give you a little bit more information about what would be good academic practices. There can be things like there's tests. They may ask you not to work with your classmates. And so if maybe the same sentence shows up in 2 papers, that might be a case where if it's a test, if it's something more high stakes, then they're going to take stronger actions. And I do want to let you know that when an instructor files a report with the Center for Student Rights and Responsibilities, the first time isn't severe. More what they're doing is reaching out to you, making sure that you understand the academic honesty policy. And the goal is that if there's someone who has these practices, is doing these things, they're not doing it in every class. If they say, because if they do it in one class and then maybe they do it in another class, the other teachers might not communicate. And so we just want to make sure that students are being honest. And I hope this makes sense. The idea is that we hope you're using good practices that are building your critical thinking, that are developing your skills, and you're earning those grades that you're working so hard for. And that's what we're here to help you with. Related to this is this practice of citing sources responsibly, because you need to make sure that you are taking the ideas in a way that's academically honest and then saying exactly where you got them from in the specific format. So that is another discussion, but that is definitely related to this topic.